Hi there, welcome back to Japan, and here it is, number one in the voted top live performances for BABYMETAL by yourselves, the fans. Thank you very much. Now, I must say that I'm really looking forward to this. Obviously, when I first jumped into this, I hadn't really heard BABYMETAL except for the first couple of singles that were popularised off their first album, and then you guys helped me, if you like, reconnect to the sound, and it's given me a lot of interesting things to listen to, all the way from sort of black BABYMETAL, all the way through their experimental sort of prog, almost metal stuff. Heard so much stuff and been really listening to the live stuff recently as well. I said stuff 3 times in that sentence. Interesting. You can tell I don't edit or script. And so I am really, really looking forward to hearing this, the most voted one, because this was voted by a landslide. From the figures I got, this got a huge vote, and you guys put it up at the top. A lot of people saying this was a great one. It's got a fantastic name, and it's even got this is Rondo of Nightmare, has got the Gods of Mischief introduction. So the first 2 I heard from this live selection list that you guys voted got mixed reactions. One was very interesting, but not so much to my taste. The second one I thought really typified everything good about what they are as an artist, as an act, as a band, as a performance. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one comes. And one of the things that's quite interesting here is that this obviously will be the end of this list, but I will be looking for, if you guys have more suggestions, I will be looking to see what other songs come up. So I still think there's a lot more to tap from this, but I'm hoping with this we get the quintessential live performance. Fingers crossed, here we go. The use of the band is obviously the introduction that you were talking about. Okay, let's see where this goes now. It's not so much of an intro as it is a separate piece. I'll learn to shut up more in the future. Cameraman was sitting on a washing machine. Oh, that ended suddenly. Huh. Okay. Oh, that's an interesting one to unpack, isn't it? First of all, yeah, apologies for what I said about the intro being a separate song. It did sort of come back in there. But I do think there's an interesting point to be made about what the intro added to the song. So I will cover that first of all, although I do think in the final analysis it was nice for building up to what the song eventually would become. It obviously fit that sort of normal, headphones falling down, that normal trope of being something where basically, you know, the musicians from the backing band, like used to be the case with jazz, trad jazz, you get the musicians from the backing band would each have their own little solo, and then the song would begin. Or sometimes that would be in the bridge with jazz, but either way. Now, with this, it kind of leads us to an interesting point, because when you come to guitar solos, as I've said before, it's very hard for a guitar solo to be something that really adds to a song, especially considering we've all heard so many guitar solos, especially if you're a metal fan, that they all kind of blur into one. The only time that guitar solos really, really stand out for me is either if they're exceptionally bad, which obviously this wasn't, or if they're exceptionally good, which is usually because they're incredibly memorable, or because they flow in a way that adds something to the song. Now, with these being right at the front of the piece as part of an intro. They didn't really add anything to a song like a solo and a bridge perhaps would. And when it comes to being memorable, they were memorably talented. They were very well delivered. I mean, they were fantastic musicianship, but it was something where, you know, it didn't stick in my head. So the guitar solos perhaps not as much. The bass solo, maybe it's just because we hear less bass solos, but that stood out more to me than the guitar or the drum solos. When I heard that, it was just fantastic to hear a really decent bass solo. But again, that whole front section at first had me feeling, well, this doesn't really add anything to the song, and then it kind of stops, and I thought, well, what really was that? But then it kind of makes sense, because what it's really doing is it's getting you set up, it's getting you geared up, getting you energized. Because the song that follows, which I'm assuming that the bit when Sue, I'm terrible at remembering names, the lead singer, when she appears, that whole bit is what I'm assuming is the song, what is Rondo of Nightmare, because this, apparently the title says this includes the intro, so I'm assuming that's not strictly part of the song. Now, when the song started, what became clear is that this is a song that doesn't sort of ramp up. It kind of goes through lots of things, but it was good to be energized by that intro before we went into it, because then it gave a chance for the vocals to stand out more. And what really, really worked for me about that was the fact that the song did go through different phases. It took advantage, without going into the more sort of silly side of baby metal, almost called them bad-made. Without going into the more silly side of baby metal, which can be fun at times, what it did is it took some of the more poppy elements, like those little breakdowns where you had the piano bits and everything. They really worked because it gave more energy when it came back in. So it's not like the song necessarily had any huge crescendo or anything to it. And I could argue that most of the song didn't seem to have a direction. It just kind of came and went. But what it did very well is it engineered this thing where you were always on the edge of your seat, always interested to see what happened next, where it was always throwing up surprises. The rhythm was nice and technical at places and adjusted. It was an example of a song that just kind of existed, it didn't outstay its welcome, just kind of went through everything perfectly and kept you listening, which I think is probably a very good example of a live song. You know, what a good quality live song would be. It's something where you're always on your toes. There is a drama to it beyond the performance, beyond the lighting, beyond the visuals. There's a quality to it which is musical, which is what keeps you energized and focused. Now, that interestingly did come across in the live show, because this was the least showy of the live performances I've seen from Baby Metal. And that includes the last one, which was the Sonosphere one, which I reviewed, which basically had no effects at all. With this, the fact that she was restricted to that small point where she was standing in the middle, and the fact that the musicians were perfectly aligned around the outside, not really moving because they were on their stations, demonstrated that this was more of a demonstration of musical ability, which came forth in her vocal performance, which was fantastic. I wouldn't say it was her standout best. I wouldn't say listening to that, I go, oh, that clearly is her, the epitome of everything she does, her top moment. But it was a very good example of the strength of her voice and why she should be taken seriously as a singer. And you know, the musicians did a fantastic job as well. So the whole performance basically it sat on that line between what I vehemently dislike, which is music which is just there to show off talent. I really hate that. I really hate just stuff which is just there, go, look how good we are at this. Because as far as I'm concerned, a well-written song played by bad musicians will always be better than a bad song played by good musicians. I'm sorry, that just my opinion is always the case. But in this example, it was a really good song, not their best song, probably not their worst. I can't really say I've heard any songs by them that I would say were bad, but it was somewhere in the middle of their quality. But it showed the quality of songwriting, but it showed the quality of their musicianship and their performance in a way that didn't interfere with it musically, if that makes sense. This is very unusual, not at all what I expected, so I'm really glad you guys gave this one for me to check. Do I think it's the best one? I still think that last one I listened to, that Sonosphere one, that to me was the best live performance I've heard by them, and I really enjoyed that. I just liked everything about that. This one to me didn't quite reach the level of sort of engaging. Well, I say engaging. It's hard to describe the issue with this one. I'm almost lost for words. The songwriting being memorable that would perhaps put it at the top of the list for me. It wasn't one of those songs, I mean, even now I've kind of forgotten the melody, But I would still say this managed to deliver showmanship with enough and quality of musicianship with enough awareness of what makes a song engaging and stops it becoming boring, like one of those. I'm trying to think of like someone like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all of these guitarists who a lot of the time their solos would just kind of, look how good I am, and I'm there going, oh, falling asleep, like, yeah, you're really good, yeah. This wasn't like that. That's about the best I can say. This was a really engaging one where I was always on the edge of my seat, always banging my head along, always looking to see what would happen next in the rhythm with the changes from the piano bits outwards. Maybe not the most memorable song, but very well delivered. You guys would finish this off with an incredibly difficult one to sum up in words, wouldn't you? Anyway, thank you very much. I will be checking out more BABYMETAL as and when things come in that draw interest, but I really appreciate you guys giving me such an interesting selection for this. And yeah, until you want to join me again, feel free to subscribe and listen to me ramble on again in future. Yeah, I don't edit things because I think it's nice to just have verbal diarrhea all over my videos, of which this has probably been the longest one I've ever recorded. So until next time you want to join me in Japan, for now, ciao ciao.